So thank you very much, everyone, for coming to our final session of our Café con Leche 5-part series that'll be highlighting our Richmond Housing Renovation Program. Thank you to everyone who's been involved so far, everyone coming and sharing the link. We greatly appreciate it. So my name is Melissa Ferrer. I'm the Development Manager at RCF Connects. And I'm going to just jump right in per usual with a little bit of a background story, and then we'll kick off the session. So I'm going to start off by sharing that my parents met in the Mission District of San Francisco on 26th and Mission, to be exact. So what is currently a pie cafe used to be a Peruvian nightclub. So they were really young, in their early 20s. They got married really fast and lived with my maternal grandparents, who had always been renters in San Francisco. My mom never wanted to leave San Francisco. She was very hardcore, born and raised city native. Like, that's what she would always say, San Francisco, born and raised, to her core all the time. So she never wanted to leave the city, but it was absolutely impossible for my parents to be able to save up enough to buy a home, or their first time home in the city. So eventually, after living with my grandparents and working and saving, they moved to Concord, where they bought their first townhouse and became first-time home buyers, as well as first-generation home buyers. When I was 7, we lived in Concord until I was 7. And then when I was 7, we sold our Concord home and moved in with my grandparents in their 2-bedroom apartment for about 8 to 9 months, so that my parents could work as much as they could and save as much money. So that was a great experience of 6 Peruvians in a pretty small home. But it was incredibly helpful. So my parents did, and after working really hard in those 8 months, they were able to purchase their home in Walnut Creek. And then since then, I grew up in Walnut Creek. At 23 years old, with co-signing help from my grandparents and loaning money help from my parents, I was then able to purchase my own home and become a single first-time home buyer at 23. So looking back on it, I can see that none of it would have been able to happen if it wasn't for my parents buying their first home. My parents buying their first home is what really helped years and years later my grandparents buy their condo, which is then in return years and years and years later helped me buy my place. So, and I don't even think that was wealth or that type of impact was even on my parents' mind at all when they first made their decision. So the work that the Richmond Housing Renovation Program does is far more than make a path to home ownership, but it's also creating a platform for legacy to be built, wealth to be built through estate, wealth through assets, and then family assets, which go into family lineage. So the impact is actually so profound that I don't even think we can truly see the impact that the Richmond Housing Renovation Program has fully done yet. So with that, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jim Becker, RCF Connect's CEO and president, as well as a mastermind behind the Richmond Housing Renovation Program, alongside Mitzi Perez-Gatto, an RCF Connect's board member, Kennedy High teacher, and a Richmond Housing Renovation home buyer. So thank you all for coming very much to our final session. And with that, I will pass it to Kelly Robinson, an RCF coach, and who will be our facilitator for today's session.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And also congratulations to you on being a 23-year-old homeowner, and also on this Café con Leche series. It's been such a wonderful experience to be here and to witness in this process unfolding. So thank you so much. And so thank you so much for allowing me to witness with you the unfolding of this. Welcome, everyone. So I'm just going to be asking a number of questions, and then at some point we'll just stop and see if there are questions that folks have in the room that you'd like to bring forward. And you'll sort of see where we're going with this. And so you might not be thinking now that you have a question, but maybe someone will say something and it'll spur a question in you. And then we'll just go on for maybe 40 minutes or so, and then we'll kick it back at the end, back to Melissa to wrap up for us. So the very first question I'd like to ask to open this up is for Jim. So many people have described the housing renovation program as Jim's baby. And I just heard Melissa say Jim's the mastermind So is there a co-parent for this baby who inspired this program's launch? And when and where and why did you come up with this brilliant idea?
Sure. So yes, I think internally at RCF we talk about it as Jim's baby, but there were many more partners out in the community that worked with us, many who are on the call today, to figure out how to actually develop the social impact bond financing tool and then put it into practice and actually implement it and implement it successfully. So now retired, but at that time, City Manager Bill Lindsay was a big partner in this, along with his finance director at that time, a gentleman named Jim Goins. Laura Carrington Sutcliffe, the law firm that worked as the city's bond counsel, provided pro bono legal support to help create the bond. And ultimately, the Richmond City Council had to approve the project and the bond sales. So at the beginning, that was sort of the initial team. I wish I could take all the credit, but I can't. Brilliant minds around that table really helped create this model and this infrastructure. Now, as the implementation developed, that brought in new and additional partners. So for example, the city's code enforcement department became probably our strongest partner in terms of identifying and helping us get information and access boarded up abandoned properties around the city, because the problem this creates for cities and communities is that these properties, which code enforcement communities call zombie properties, right? No one wants to own them. No one takes responsibility for them. So the cities end up having to keep them boarded up, having to eliminate trash, cut weeds, all of that. It becomes a challenge. And at the time we began this project, code enforcement estimated that of about 200 plus properties that they were actively managing, in other words, doing this for, it cost them about $7,000 per year per property. So we're talking about, millions of dollars being spent just to keep properties in a deteriorating condition. So going forward, the partners who come in next are Mechanics Bank, who purchased the bond, First Republic Bank, who's been on the board of the program. Lena Robinson is here, and who's been providing additional capital for the project. Sonia Flores is on the call from Union Bank. They're the bond trustee. Our real estate team, Fisher Realtors, the title companies, everybody's really been working in partnership to make this happen, because these are not easy properties to acquire, rehab, and redevelop. In many cases, they barely break even. And so the challenge, of course, is that the private sector has no interest in these. So they simply sit until someone like an RCF and a city partnership like ours steps in and goes after these properties in a very, very specific and strategic way.
Yeah. So Jim, give us something to get our juices flowing, get us excited. What can you tell us about who these people are who come in and inhabit these former zombie homes? Who are the people that end up living in these properties? What's their story?
So we actually have someone on the call who I'm going to flip this over to in a second, maybe. But the folks who end up becoming the homeowners for these properties, we specifically designed the project to allow graduates of our local first-time homebuyer programs through Spark Point, and our partners there are Community Housing Development Corporation. Rita is on the call from CHDC, Neighborhood Housing Services of the East Bay, and that's Nikki Beasley's group. So the three collectively work together to prepare homeowners to become home buyers, or I'm sorry, prepare residents to become home buyers. So typically it's they have first right to these properties. So a first-time home buyer would come in, and SparkPoint and the two partner agencies, CHDC and NHS, would work on their credit, help them access down payment, help them qualify for a loan. And then what we do is we try to price it at a fair neighborhood price, so that the neighborhood councils don't get mad at us for artificially deflating neighborhood values. And at the same time, we try to wrap all of these down payment assistance programs so that buyers, and we have one here today who's now also become a board member at RCF, can come in and afford the loans and afford these properties and become homeowners in the communities where they currently live.
Yeah. So I'd like to just bring in the voice of Mitzi Perez Caro today, and you are one of the homeowners that Jim is talking about. Talk a little bit about how you became a board member and what that is like a little bit later. But would you just kind of walk us through the journey of becoming a homeowner in this process with the housing renovation program? And what were some of the milestones that you remember that you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So as Melissa already stated, and I think you did, Kelly, too. So I'm a teacher here at Kennedy. I am a homegrown teacher, so that means I grew up here. I lived here all my life. And it's funny because we met Jim at a city council meeting. So he was presenting this program to the city council members, and they were discussing it. So it was before the vote, before it passed. And actually, I think they were reviewing it, excuse me. And I turned to my husband, who was my then fiance, and I was like, Aunt, I think this would be a really good idea for us to do. I'm excited about it, and I would love to see if we could try it. And immediately that day, he approached Jim, and we bugged him ever since then about it. And we've always we're always involved. And I was very thankful that day that we were at the city council meeting to hear about it and to know more about it. And I do want to increase the awareness of the program.
Yeah. So Mitzi, we're all gonna get on a transport plane, and we're gonna go and we're gonna land in your neighborhood, and we're all with you standing there in front of your house on the street. And just see us all standing there with you. We're all standing behind you and your husband, your family. We're looking at your house. Will you describe to us, what are we seeing? And then maybe walk us up to the front door, open the door, and share with us what we're seeing.
Yeah, of course. So as you approach the home, you see these bright blues, nice paint that is kind of on the exterior of the home. It's very tall with solar panels on the side. You see the green grass, and you kind of ease your way into the front door. There's a really smooth hardwood floor when you enter, and in the hallway as well. So you ease into the space in that sense. And then we have some really nice marble counters in the kitchen. And that's the majority of where we spend our space in the bigger area. There's a lot of comfort when you enter the rooms, especially with carpet and just kind of they're all together in one area. And it's very breathable in the sense that you get to transfer from one room to the other. It's very easy. And in that space and time, when I opened the door to my house, I felt a sanctuary. I felt home. And God, I don't mean to get emotional, but it has always been a dream of mine to own a home. And Melissa and I share the fact that we bought a house at 23, and I didn't think that was going to be a possibility. I thought I was going to rent for a long time, and I'm so glad that we were able to do so.
Yeah. Thank you. So Jim, it's about what Mitzi is describing. It's about sanctuary, safety, making an investment in the community through our individual efforts. It's also about wealth building and about community investment. So talk to us a little bit about this idea of the home ownership standard versus the flip standard, and what's the impact on that for wealth building at the neighborhood resident level?
Sure. Well, so because our goal is home ownership, we build to a very high standard. We want these homes to represent pride, quality materials, energy efficiencies. So Mitzi mentioned, having solar already on the property. All of the fixtures are low electrical use. We are shifting primarily to all electric designs. Although we know a lot of people like to cook on gas stoves, we are really shifting towards renewable energy and those kinds of sources. And we want these homes to be not only affordable to purchase, but affordable to maintain. And so you have to use quality materials to maintain, and you have to use efficiency, water efficiency. We use tankless water heaters, all of these things that you might find in a wealthier neighborhood matter, and I think are important for any homeowner. So part of our goal is to bring that in. One of the strategies around wealth building is that we do not place any liens on these properties. While a lot of folks have criticized us for that a little bit, saying, if you put a lien on it, you can make it permanently affordable. But part of the challenge, of course, and this is in a lot of ways the results of redlining and other racist policies that have been involved in housing for a long time. They have been involved in wealth stripping, maybe, as opposed to wealth building. So we really wanted to make sure that not only was this about home ownership, particularly in communities of color, but this was about wealth building. And one of the newest strategies that we're adding to this design, and we're partnering with Arlington Community Church, is to establish a Black Wealth Builder Fund that will provide down payment assistance to Black first-time homeowners who are interested in our properties or other properties. And so that is an important piece of it. It's something we explored for a long time about, is this about affordable housing, or is this really about home ownership and wealth building? And we in the end really felt that the home ownership and wealth building were key.
There's a question in the chat from Miss Lena Robinson from First Republic for you, Mitzi. Lena says, what's been the most surprising thing financially about home ownership? Thank you for the question, Miss Lena.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the major things is kind of getting to know the landscape, like knowing when to pay your taxes and what it means to have like a closing cost, or just all of these different factors that my parents went through, but were learning on the fly. And so we also had to learn on the fly. It wasn't necessarily easy. I think the biggest thing that we kind of struggled with was just understanding what it means at each step. And so I know we'll get into it a little bit later, but that's some of the struggles that there.
Mm-hmm. And also for you, Mitzi, so homeownership is considered to be a pillar of building intergenerational wealth. And so for you, what will the impact on the next generation be because you made this decision? And what inspired you to make this investment now?
Yeah, for sure. So I often talk to my students about what it means to live and love the area that you're from. And so for me, it's really important that that we show that. And as a teacher, I knew I wanted to live in this community. Again, I thought I was going to rent for a long time before I was able to buy a home here. But luckily, I'm 2 blocks away from my parents. I'm 2 miles away from Kennedy. Like, this is my space, you know. And we made this investment now because we knew that we had other battles to tackle, if that makes sense. So me and my husband, like I said, we're involved, and we really want to make sure that our community is thriving. We want to make sure that not only the School of Kennedy, but all of WCC is doing better. I know it's a small step as a teacher, but I hope to essentially inspire students to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about your husband? You've mentioned him a couple times. Just want to speak his name into the space and welcome him also into the space, and just see if there's anything that you'd like to share about where he lands on all of this.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned it. So the reason why I feel like I got a little bit emotional is because Anthony, who's my husband, is stationed in South Korea. So he's in the Army currently. And so it's funny, we bought a home, but then he had to leave right away. And often I feel like currently it's just a space that I share with some of the teacher renters who live here with me. But when he comes home, it always feels better for the both of us. And I think that often I feel somewhat alone and kind of trying to figure out how to like maintain the home and make sure that everything is done correctly. But he often gets upset with me a little bit, and because he knows that he can support me, and I tend to take it all by myself. And so yeah, that's Anthony.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to just note that this is a story of social impact. It's a story of intergenerational wealth. It's a story of partnership, but it's really a story of love. It's really a story of wanting to contribute and wanting to receive from a place of love in the community, in our families, in our personal partnerships within ourselves. So I appreciate you being willing to just bring that element of the story into the space and enroll us into that. I want to just take a quick pause and note that we've got, as Jim mentioned earlier, Sonia Flores from Union Bank is here. Ms. Lena Robinson from First Republic is here. Ms. Tiffany Grimsley from City of Hercules is also here, Hercules City Council. I just wanted to see if there's anything you all would like to bring into the space from responding to what you've heard or what you're feeling right now about what's being shared. Just jump on in.
Well, thanks, Kelly. Hi, good afternoon. Still morning, everyone. So, and thank you for the opportunity to kind of chime in. And Jim, thank you for, first of all, inviting me to be on this board for the Richmond Renovation Fund. It's really been a fascinating experience for me, to see how this works from start to finish. Really, it is, for me, the gold standard of how we should work to revitalize our neighborhoods, especially at a time when we do, see such, so many, properties that could be, housing families, and giving people that opportunity for home ownership or something, but they're sitting abandoned. And so I hope that this model will spread and catch on. I don't want to say like wildfire, because that's just too close to reality for us here in California, but, really catch on, with enthusiasm, and that other cities will, take away from the lessons that you've, really struggled to and hurdles that you struggle to get past and to show us. So really kudos to you guys, to RCF and Jim in particular, for his hard work and leadership on this. And, one of the things that, does remain somewhat of an area of concern for me and frustration is how expensive these houses still, end up being at the end of the day, right? At the beginning, I think this was very much expected to be a program where, people who had gone through Spark Point and were, families that were considered moderate income families could afford to buy these properties. And, I hope that's still the case with the down payment assistance and stuff, but just the cost of rehabbing these properties, has really been shocking to me. The both in terms of the quality and standards that Jim wanted to have in the properties, but just, the cost of labor and all kinds of other things that were just unforeseen has pushed that housing cost up. So I know that there's been some criticism about our, is this program gentrifying Richmond or whatever, but at the end of the day, any property that is a place where somebody can live in that property and, the neighbors don't have to, look at an abandoned property is a win for any community. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. Jim, Ms. Lena just sort of mentioned a little bit about model, like this program can be a model. What about that? Where else in the country is anything like this happening or trying to happen that you're aware of?
So we have shared this idea with various cities across the country. Teams from Bridgeport, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts, Lincoln, Nebraska, Atlanta, Georgia. But where we're getting the most traction right now are actually in two cities. One is Sacramento and one is Vallejo. And so actually David Lindsay is on the call today, who lives up in Vallejo, who's been working with us to look at replicating this in Vallejo. But what's I think most exciting is that we've been working on ways to add to the bond fund and find other sources so that we can try to still keep the property values lower. As Lena mentioned, it's still crazy to think what housing costs are here, even in a program like ours. So we have, for example, an Environmental Protection Agency grant that allows us to offset some of the costs for toxicity in the soil from illegal dumping and things like that. We've got a California Department of Energy grant that's going to help us cover the costs of all of the energy upgrades because they've bought into the idea of the project. But what's I think most exciting is the EPA has picked this as one of their national models that they're going to help bring to other cities as well. Mm-hmm. And they're creating a toolkit for us right now and a case study that would help do that. Wow. But ideally, this is something that many cities can replicate and I think get excited about.
So David, Lindsay, thank you for joining the call today. Would you be willing to just sort of give us a little bit of a sense of what's going on up in Sacramento?
Oh, well, I'm actually
Vallejo.
Yeah. So I'm part of a community organizing group called Common Ground that has members in Solano and Napa County, and many of them are in Vallejo. And we have a homelessness and housing team. And I had a good source about this program in Richmond from my brother Bill. So he sort of put the bug in my ear. And so I shared it with our Common Ground group that this is something that would be really beneficial to Vallejo, sort of parallel to what's been done in Richmond. So we've had several meetings that Jim has made presentations. We've talked to, first, we talked to their neighborhood law program. We've talked to individual city council members. We've talked to the city manager, the Vallejo Housing Authority, the finance person, and I could say, and code enforcement also. And we've had really good response from everybody that we've talked to, but it seems like it's a kind of slow going in terms of getting, actually getting the social impact bonds approved and moving forward. And I think it's just maybe a couple things. There's not someone that says, I'm going to ramrod this through. I'm going to be the champion of this and get it done. And that's Jim points out that certainly in Richmond, we had that with Bill's support. And so it's hard to get, it's hard to get the attention with what's going on in Vallejo. And, but I'm still hopeful because like I said, we really got, it's the city council members all felt like this was really a good program. I can say that the issue of really internally in Common Ground, the issue about, permanent affordability was an issue with a couple of our, the allies we work with, like the Vallejo Housing Justice Coalition, and they work with the Northern California Land Trust. And, I think that is sort of a tricky thing, but it seems like it's not either or. You got to do both. You got to have these opportunities to transform blighted lots into housing that allow wealth building, but you need, perhaps community land trust type financing to keep a certain percentage as affordable moving forward. Anyway, I probably went a little long, but that's what's going on in Vallejo.
Thank you, David. I want to take a pause right now to see if there's anyone else in the room that wants to ask a question of anyone, a partner, Mitzi, Jim.
I believe Uche has a question or a comment.
Hi, Uche.
Hello. I think it's partly a comment and statement and also acknowledgement. Obviously, this is issue that I'm very passionate about in terms of home ownership. But Jim and I had a meeting, I think it was 2019, in our office in Oakland on this issue, and we discussed potentially taking this on a regional or state level. And when you think about social impact project like this, you have to get the state involved, and you have to push some form of legislation that will help expand it. We've done the pilot program in Richmond here. I know it's successful. I was there at the grand opening for Mitzi's home the first time. I was there. I took a tour there. I've had this conversation with Jim now and then. But it's really important that we engage the state, whether it's our office or Nancy Skinner's office or jointly. That way we can potentially come out with some form of legislation that can help expand this program. I think that's a very important way to go. We did a legislation this past year on faith-based housing. That means any faith-based community can build in their church, in their mosque, any of their properties. They actually have better opportunity to build. And I also serve on a board on New Ways Home. New Ways Home is also another social impact organization in Santa Clara. So we opened our first home that we did in Oakland last month at Genesis Worship Center, and that home house people who are recently released from prison. So there's really an opportunity here to expand this program. That's really the big point here, is to expand this program, make it a much more statewide program. And that I really believe the best way to go is to work with our office and Skinner's office to come up with a legislation to expand it. So
yeah. That's Uche Uahamu from Assembly Member Buffyworth's office. Thank you so much for joining the call today.
welcome.
Mitzi, I'd like to ask you about the story of how you became an RCF board member. So were the seeds planted in you to do this a long time ago, or what was the inspiration for doing it? And what is it that you bring that's unique and needed on the board right now? And then the other sort of piece is what part of your board identity intersects with your identity as a homeowner?
For sure. Thank you for the question, Kelly. So I actually was first introduced to RCF, and I probably should have been way before this, but in 2016, I was writing a story for the Richmond Pulse, and it was around the Richmond book giveaway. I was so intrigued by the fact that the RCF Connects was giving books away. And so I definitely asked more questions, even past my assignment as a journalist. And ever since then, I really do appreciate all the work that RCF Connects does for the community. And I see it in many different aspects. And education is something that I hold dear to my heart, obviously, but that was one of the main kind of bridge stones that helped me get involved. And I wear several hats in this community. And so very, very busy, but I was very honored when Jim asked for me to be on the board. He wanted a perspective that was part of the program, this program. And also I am involved with SNAT, or Healthy Richmond. So the Schools and Neighborhood Action Committee, or team, excuse me. And so these many different aspects and kind of things that I have done, Jim really wanted the community perspective on the board, and I was honored to be asked. And of course, I had to go through the process, but I was very thankful, and am very thankful that I am able to have a seat at the table.
Jim, there's a piece that may get lost that I want to make sure that I ask about. And I think it relates to the idea of both social impact and community investment. Can you talk a little bit about the contractors and the local laborers who participate in the renovations of these homes? Who are they, and how do they get connected to the project?
Sure. So at the very beginning of the project, we began to work with Richmond Build and a project that was part of our Equip Richmond initiative with Chevron, the Construction Resource Center. And the idea being that we wanted to not just build these homes, but we wanted to create opportunities for employment and economic development in the city. And so we, at the very beginning of the project, we began to bid out different, projects through the Construction Resource Center, encouraging the contractors there, to use Richmond Build graduates. And that process worked very well. And then we had fire number 1, and then fire number 2, and other natural disasters that suddenly pulled a lot of our contractors and construction teams up to communities like Paradise, and rightfully so. They could make a lot of money there, and work under FEMA, and so we lost some good connections, but one of our local contractors stayed, and what we worked out was, and they were very good, and are still working with us. And what we worked out was basically a deal where, you know, they would do all of our properties and they would, you know, put some skin in the game as well. And so that has been incredibly helpful, particularly as costs for materials began to escalate and other labor costs began to rise again. That really helped us because, you know, we are able to, for example, build a brand new property now for $189 a square foot. Now, I know that sounds like a crazy number, but if you think that many new homes are going for $300 and $400 a square foot to build, we're getting a great deal. And they've bought into the dream that we have. One of their staff or one of their team members became a homeowner with us. So that was pretty cool. They got to build a house that he ended up, you know, living in with his family.
Wow.
So there's some great, you know, resources here. And the other thing I think is important is that this bond process that we've established, it's allowed us to basically reuse the funds time and time again. And so in the first 5 years of the bond, we did almost just over 700 million in local spending. And so that's been important. The other thing that we've done is we've repaid almost $1 million in unpaid property taxes and code enforcement liens back to the city and back to the county. And these, Bill Lindsay once said to me, you know, we have a deal with the city of Richmond that any code enforcement liens that we pay, if we successfully turn over the house to a first-time home buyer, we can get those back from the city to help offset the cost of the property. And Bill's point was, you know, right now we have unproductive assets that are a drain on the city budget. And this project will not only bring those back, but they'll start paying taxes again. The homeowners will spend money locally in the community. That's a boon for the city. So Bill's vision really helped with that as well. And it's been a you know, real joy to watch homeowners move into their first house. Just a quick story, and then I'll stop. You know, another homeowner that we had ended up purchasing the home that she grew up in as a child. Her parents had passed away, and she wanted to move back into that home, but it was uninhabitable, had been for decades. They had lost it because of unpaid property taxes and things. So we were able to reclaim the property, and she was able to basically own the home that she grew up in, and was so excited about that.
That's a great story, Jim. You also referred to some of the $8.5 million that this project has returned to the local economy when you were talking a moment ago about some of those other investments that are being made. Ms. Tiffany Grimsley from City of Hercules City Council says, how can the community at large or neighboring cities support and or contribute to RCF Connects and the housing program in particular? Thank you for the question, Ms. Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany, and great to see you again. Glad you're here. So there's a couple things. You know, anyone can make a contribution to the program by logging into our website, richmondcf.org, and clicking the donate button, and you can specifically designate the housing program. But in terms of other cities, we would love to work with other cities, as I mentioned earlier, to help create this kind of infrastructure, even for you know, cities like Hercules or others that may not have as big of an issue with this. But you know, these things go in waves, unfortunately, and we have economic booms and busts. And we, you know, the interesting thing about the social impact bond, and something that we've talked about with Vallejo too, is that, you know, you could potentially do multifamily properties with this, probably smaller ones, but you know, 2 and 4 unit. We did a 2 unit in our project, and this might even work for commercial properties. If the city wants to revitalize a downtown, these kinds of social impact bonds where really the risk is really shared with the investor, make a lot of sense. I like to call them private capital for public good. It really allows the private market to invest and to participate in ways that can rebuild infrastructure, whether it's houses in our case, or commercial properties or other things.
Yeah. Mitzi, when you're in the community, either when you are teaching or when you are on the board or whether you're in front of your house doing your landscaping, what does it mean for you, for other folks in your community to know that you're making the investments on the different levels that you're investing in the community? How does that make you feel?
Well, I think about my future kids, and I think about the legacy that they can have. And I want them to share the love that I have for my community. And I want them to also be able to be just as involved, if not more. I'm often, so I know my neighbors really well now. And I know the people around me and the different community or nonprofits. And they know the story, and they're often very super supportive. And a lot of people on this call were actually here when I received the keys to my home. So it often, for me, it's home is beyond just this space. It's the greater area. And I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to do this. And I'm so enthusiastic about the things that will come, and all the properties that are being listed and being reworked. I'm often tell my friends and my family about those properties, so they can also and other teachers as well, so that they can reside here as well.
Thank you. So a couple of just really quick questions.
So Kelly, could I do one thing before we pass? Because
Sure.
I want to share something, if I can share my screen for just a moment.
Sure.
You've met Mitzi, but I want to show you her home, if I may. Mitzi, can I do that? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Melissa, can I share my screen? Okay.
While he does that, this is the bedroom. If you were curious where it was in my space.
So this is the before and after picture. Let me just do the slideshow here of the home, and yeah, and they're the happy homeowners. I love this picture.
Beautiful.
Thanks for letting me share, Mitzi.
A couple of final quick questions, and thank you all for hanging with us. Jim, how many homes have been renovated in this project, through this project? And what do you see for your baby as it continues to grow in the future?
With the pilot project, we've done basically 20 properties. So that's roughly over 5 years. That's roughly 4 houses a year. The biggest challenge is acquisition, getting legal title to a property, because there are so many barriers in the way, but we work through those. And for a bond about $3 million, that's about right. That's a good production value. What I think of in the future is really, as Uche and David both said, really bringing this to other cities and other communities, and helping people develop a local plan and a local process for creating this revenue stream, and then reclaiming a lot of these boarded up abandoned properties. And I saw Mr. Fisher just joined. He's been our broker for all of the properties, and he has put skin in the game as well, as I mentioned, and has been a huge supporter of this program. Good to see you, Joe. Thank you for being here.
You're on mute, Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, apologize for being late. We had anticipated being on time, but that didn't happen. So here again, please accept our apology.
Thank you for joining.
Yes.
So I want to thank you all for this really rich and emotional conversation. Thank you so much for hanging with us through the hour. Before I turn it back over to Melissa to close, I want to just acknowledge Mr. Bill Lindsay, Mr. Jim Brandt, and Mr. Greg Medley, who are also board members along with Mitzi on the RCF board. So thank you all for being here and for supporting this work. And thank you for letting me also be a part of this process and to witness the unfolding of this amazing project and all of the great experiences and stories that came out of today.
Thank
Back
you,
to you,
Kelly,
Melissa.
as well.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you very much, Mitzi. A big, big thank you. And thank you for all of us, I'm sure, for Anthony's service, as well as all other military spouses. So in closing, thank you so much for attending the last session of our 5-part Café con Leche series. It is incredibly simple. It becomes incredibly simple to highlight the impact that RCF does and the work that we do when they're created, when the work is created and led and designed and executed by such brilliant community members and community leaders. So thank you all very much from Mobility Labs, Healthy Richmond, Ensuring Opportunity, Spark Point Contra Costa, as well as the Richmond Housing Renovation Program. Huge thank you to Ms. Kelly Robinson. Thank you very much, the RCF Connect coach, for not only facilitating the space so incredibly, but also the incredible thought partnership and just thoughtfulness in the questions and really taking the time to make it so real and make it a palpable vibe. So thank you very much for that. It would not have made any of the success it's had without that. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to invite you all to our end of June storytelling fundraiser. Our event is called Power Shift Sharing Wealth. It is a free virtual event for all community members, corporate partners, CBO partners alike. So I will right now in the chat send the link for registration. So I would definitely appreciate it if everyone would be interested. It is on June 24th from 7 to 9 p.m. So share the link, register, but you'll all be getting more information about it and follow-up emails. And overall, thank you all so much. Again, thank you to Jim and Mitzi for today, as well as our board and all of the support for the series so far. So thank you all very much and have a fantastic weekend.